So when it comes to the world of the fourth stimulus checks, as most of you guys probably know, is that there is so much information all over the different places. And the big thing to note is that if you've been following this channel for a while, then you probably know about how we've been talking a lot about how right now at this current time, the best hope that we really have to be able to see some kind of fourth stimulus check happen is to really be able to see it come either on a very focused niche level, such as, so for example, like for child tax credits, social security stimulus checks, or to have it on a very focused state level. Now the great news is that if you've been following this channel, and I'll put videos at the very end screen, is that there are actually many states that have already approved their own individual state stimulus package or specific stimulus check programs. These are all approved programs, but only less people talk about it is just because they're just on very state levels, but we definitely already covered it. But in today's update, the brand new information that I really want to share is that we now officially have a lot of new data, a lot of new reports that have officially now started to come out to talk about just our country in general, about whatever happened to a lot of these stimulus programs that have already ended, and what actually happened to just our country as a whole when they actually ended stimulus, and about the argument that some people are really making right now to try to push for more stimulus checks. So in today's update, I just kind of want to talk about everything that's been going on, hopefully to paint a better picture. I think it's hopefully going to be very relatable, especially to anyone that might be struggling right now or still struggling, which, you know, huge best wishes that we're able to kind of still grind through these times, because there is still a lot happening around the world. So we're gonna get started, but as always, real fast before we begin, consider smashing the like button as always, because it is greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell, and as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about anything. So with that being said, let's get started right on the spot. Hey everyone, how's it going today, and welcome back. So we're going to basically just talk about a lot of different articles that I think are very insightful. So the first article that we're going to talk about is going to be right here, and it really just talks a little bit about why it's very probable that they should definitely look into contributing to trying to do more stimulus checks. What this article really just talks about, it is a little bit of an older article. I mean, it came out when all these programs ended, so not that old. But the idea is that it just talks a little bit about what's been going on, and the idea is really that right now at this current time, there are definitely senators that are down low trying to preach for more stimulus checks, even if it happens to be on a focused level. As most of you guys know, like Bernie Sanders, AOC. I know over here they talk a little bit about Ben Cardin and Roger Wicker. They are not very well known. So maybe that's the reason why it's a little bit more hidden information. But the story is that there are two senators right now that are really trying to push for stimulus checks, but specifically to help certain industries, I believe, such as like restaurants, hospitality. The motivation behind this is because they want to be able to help people that genuinely need that help, and they know that a lot of people in these specific industries were probably the most targeted, and I think that's really the big motivation behind it. And I definitely feel it there, because on a regular level, you know, just on a personal level, I know a lot of people that work in hospitality. I work in entertainment outside of this, so I totally feel it right there that, you know, there are many industries that were particularly impacted, and then other industries it's, you know, as if nothing happened, kind of just like the story with if you work in the tech industry. And a lot of this is actually especially ever since they really ended so many different programs, like for example the child tax credit, unemployment, a lot of the different, you know, bonuses, even a lot of stuff related to like a lot of the business grants, like the EIDL, SBA, all of that stuff related. We've made videos in the past, definitely like scroll through if you guys are interested. But the big idea maybe is that one new information that was just released is really about the country's statistic ever since they really ended the child tax credit program. And they really just found out from a lot of research that when they ended, now that we've had almost 2 months since they've ended the program, that the sad thing is, and I mean this is actually a very sad thing, is that when they ended the child tax credit program, within a single month, they found that about 3.7 million children essentially fell back into poverty after it ended. In other words, the big thing is that the poverty rates in our country for them ended up rising from about 12% to 17%. So this is basically 5% increase, which is a lot of people. You know, when you live in a country with like over 100 million people, that is a lot of people. They basically experienced a 5% increase from that, or if you keep into perspective from where we started, actually more of like a 41%. Because the thing is that 12% to 7, that's a 5% raise, but 5 divided by 12, you know, because a 5% increase from 12% is a 41% increase from when, 5 divided by 12 is 40-ish something. But the idea is that what this really shows you is that they essentially just found out immediately, as soon as they ended the child tax credit at the very, very end of 2021, the following month, they basically saw that massive spike. And this is actually an example of one of the biggest arguments that some politicians are really using right now to justify why, even if they don't necessarily do federal fourth stimulus checks, maybe there's a lot of push for why they should at least continue a lot of the actual programs that already exist that kind of, in a way, actually no, not kind of, they do in a lot of ways act as a stimulus check. Because at the end of the day, they are related to taxes. The stimulus check is related to a tax because it's a tax program. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is that they're programs meant to put money inside of our pockets, as we've kind of discussed. And this applies to things such as, again, like child tax credit, but even a lot of things such as, like, again, unemployment, business grants, other focused programs, Social Security. It really just goes on and on and on. And I think that the next point that a lot of politicians have been really trying to make about why there should be more stimulus checks, or just simply put, stimulus programs in general, is actually also, interestingly, because of the inflation story. Now, I might make another video about it because I know a lot of people, may or may not care about inflation, but it is actually very relatable. And I think this is the part to really get why it is because one of the biggest arguments that a lot of politicians and people are trying to make for doing more stimulus check programs is actually exactly because of the inflation. Because the story right now is that they're finding out from a lot of research that ever since they started to reopen up the economy and everything, which is good because it means we're at least able to go back to our regular lives now, both for the sake of our physical and our mental health and just our general well-being in general. But what they also realize is that a lot of the wages have not necessarily gone up depending on your job. And feel free to share any personal stories if you guys have any, especially for people that maybe have gone back to work, or just what it's been like in terms of spending money where you're at. But that wages have not necessarily significantly increased depending on your specific industry and location, but that the cost of so many different goods and services, especially things such as like food, has increased and skyrocketed to some very, very incredible, insane level right now. And so the meaning behind the significance really is that many people right now are trying to advocate and believe that because of the food inflation situation, it means that everything is starting to get very, very expensive. So it means that it's starting to not only become even more difficult, but actually even more difficult now in some low-key ways, because everything is actually rising in prices, which means that our money can only go so far. And I can only comment that this isn't even necessarily something from a news article, and that's kind of why I say to feel free to share if you guys have any stories at all. But even for me, being in New York, I know that when I go outside right now, many places, venues, entertainment, food, especially food, groceries, all of that stuff, we've already started to see a massive rise. I've had many times where I used to go out to eat in a restaurant, and a typical, I don't know, like Chinese takeout would be $10. But now the same restaurant, this is not from an article, this is from a personal insight thing. There are many places that something that used to cost $10 is now costing $15. And when you factor in the fact that some of these are daily costs, it really starts to add up. So the bottom line, what this means is that many people believe that there should be more stimulus programs, because if everything is starting to increase in price, they want to potentially give stimulus programs to people that really need it to help to be able to combat this situation so they can also have money to cover their bills. But I do think that because of what's been going on, if they were to do that, in order to balance this with more inflation, they have to make sure that the people that actually genuinely need the money actually are able to get the money, so it doesn't just go to anyone where they can just lavishly spend around the economy and then increase the inflation even more. So the story is right now is that kind of leads on to the other point is that there's definitely, you know, an argument for stimulus checks, but I think one of the goals that they definitely have is to just try to do it, but on a very, very focused level to really give those that particularly need it that particular help that hopefully can help as many people, of course, as can be. And I think at the very, very end of the day, you know, it's especially true with the child tax credit, because I think the big thing to notice is that I think it would be amazing, and there's definitely a push for it now. There's certainly like people that are arguing for it, if they were able to do some kind of stimulus programs to all demographics. So this includes like single individuals, such as like me, actually, interestingly, so me and many people out there, and then also of course families, so people that actually have kids. But I think maybe the part to really sympathize, I think for the reasons that they're really just pressing for everything happening, is really just about the fact that as difficult as it is, a lot of times when kids particularly are going through something difficult, it sometimes can be even more particularly difficult because a lot of kids, they don't really have the power or option to control a lot of the I mean, obviously a lot of this, you know, there's only so much that we can control at the end of the day. So much of this is just, you know, what's in front of us. But I think particularly for a lot of kids, because a lot of them are really just born into what they're born into, so it's not really an option. And I think that the sympathized version of this to really communicate is that they really just want to be able to extend the child tax credit further, but hopefully they can do checks in just other ways for more people. But beyond this is that that's pretty much most of what I just really wanted to cover in today's update. It's really just to share some information, so hopefully if you guys maybe found that relatively insightful, consider smashing the like button. If you guys you know, are interested in maybe similar updates, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about anything. If you are watching this on release date, happy President's Day weekend, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.